Good evening, everyone. Great to see you here. Great to see you all here tonight. I trust you've all had an enjoyable Friday. Study 5 tonight, which is going to take us to the theme, Judgement of Jeremiah. We'll get our night underway by singing our first hymn, which is going to be 360, and then prayer. Yahweh, our great God, we come to you in prayer now. And first of all, we acknowledge your greatness. We see around us an amazing world which you created. We see a universe so expansive that our minds hurt as we try to comprehend just how huge it is. We see animals, we see oceans, we see forests with animals and ecosystems and organisms, all these things which are created by you. We see a world where your Son, Jesus Christ, lived and died, and within all this, we stand here tonight. And with this thought, we acknowledge you that you've cared for us. And amongst all these things that you've created, you've given us an understanding of the plans that you have for this world. The opportunity we have tonight to stop and to think on these things, to open our minds, to be encouraged, to help our faith, to develop our conscience before you. We're grateful for this. We live in a peaceful country. We live in an amazing place where we can do this together tonight, and with friends and with so many other young people and others who want to learn and who want to grow and who want to walk in a way which is right before you. So we're so thankful that we can be here tonight, and we ask that you would watch over everything we do. Please guide our minds, our thoughts, our words, our reading, everything that we do. We ask for your care and your guidance tonight. So we thank you for our time together, And we pray to you in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. Big welcome to the other third who's just joined us tonight. Great to have you all here. It's good that we can all be together now, hopefully, as we get our night underway. So we're going to have a reading to introduce our thoughts tonight. Brother Shem's got the reading of Lamentations chapter 5, and Mitch is going to read that for us now. Thanks.
Reading together Lamentations chapter 5. Remember, O Yahweh, what is come upon us. Consider and behold our reproach. Our inheritance is turned to strangers, our houses to aliens. We are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as widows. We have drunken our water for money. Our wood is sold unto us. Our necks are under persecution. We labour and have no rest. We have given the hand to the Egyptians and to the Assyrians to be satisfied with bread. Our fathers have sinned and are not, and we have borne their iniquities. Servants have ruled over us. There is none that doth deliver us out of their hand. We gat our bread with the peril of our lives because of the sword of the wilderness. Our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. They ravished the women in Zion and the maids in the cities of Judah. Princes are hanged up by their hand. The faces of elders were not honoured. They took the young men to grind, and the children fell under the wood. The elders have ceased from the gate, the young men from their music. The joy of our heart is ceased. Our dance is turned into mourning. The crown is fallen from our head. Woe unto us that we have sinned. For this our heart is faint. For these things our eyes are dim. Because of the mountain of Zion, which is desolate, the foxes walk upon it. Thou, O Yahweh, remainest forever, thy throne from generation to generation. Wherefore dost thou forget us forever, and forsake us so long time? Turn thou us unto thee, O Yahweh, and we shall be turned. Renew our days as of old. But thou hast utterly rejected us. Thou art very wroth against us.
I don't know what I'm up to. I might have to go to the eighths now with the final people that have arrived. It's great to have you here tonight as well. So must have been a good Friday, 10 minutes into our night, but it's just in time for the main event, which is Brother Shem, as he speaks to us tonight on Judgement of Jeremiah. Thanks.
Thanks, Jace. Good to see you all. And great to be here tonight. So Jeremiah, I think one of the things I learnt this week, someone came up to me and said Jeremiah by word count is kind of the longest book in the Bible. And it seems amazing to me that kind of God has dedicated so much airtime, if you like, to this story and to this person, more than kind of any other book. And we've tacked on Lamentations as well, because Lamentation gives some insights into this. And we're now coming to the end of it, and we're coming to kind of the grand finale, the grand conclusion, or probably more properly the grand fizzle that happens through the life of Jeremiah. And I don't know, it was a surprise to me that it was that long. I thought the Psalms or something like that, but potentially if you've been sitting through my talks, you can appreciate the length of that. So at the moment, Jeremiah, we're coming to the end of kind of we've gone through the 3 kings, the 3 months, 11 years, 3 months, and we're in the 11 years of Zedekiah's reign, and he is approximately between 57 to 65. I won't ask you to put up your hand if you're that, but close your ears for a moment. But you know, he's getting on. He's getting old. He's kind of reaching his 70 years of age, isn't he? And he hasn't had an easy life, has he? He's been in and out of prison. He's been through sieges. So this isn't a robust and healthy and great 65-year-old. This is kind of I'm getting to the end of my run, kind of 65-year-old. And we're breaking into the reign of Zedekiah. We talked about the kind of early stages of the dreamers that were coming, and God gave some amazing dreams to Jeremiah to kind of help him and inspire him and keep him going. And if you don't know much about Zedekiah, probably the easiest way to understand him is kind of just think back to Ahab. And he's actually pretty similar to the character Ahab. He kind of has some sort of interest in God and some sort of spirituality, but he has an iron backbone which isn't his, and is provided to him in this case by the princes. And that's what we're going to deal with tonight. So our story starts with Jeremiah 21. We're about in the 34th year of Zedekiah's reign, and come to Jeremiah 21. And this is kind of like, if you didn't know better, this is almost a good news story. Verse 1, the word came unto Jeremiah from Yahweh when King Zedekiah sent unto him Pashur the son of Melchiah and Zephaniah the son of Maaseiah the priest, saying, Inquire, I pray thee, of God for us. So, this is good. Here's a king, and he's kind of inquire of God what's happening. This is so different to the other 2 sons of Josiah and Jeconiah the son of Jehoiakim. And Zedekiah is actually a son of Josiah, so he's not Jeconiah's. He is one of the younger sons of Josiah. So Zedekiah is also middle-aged, I'm getting some glares from the back there. So middle-aged, in his prime, we're going to say. And he's inquiring. But you kind of like, he's inquiring of God that when Nebuchadnezzar makes war with us, what will we do? And you're kind of like, well, it would be nice, but Jeremiah's kind of been talking about this for 20-odd years already. Like, is he suddenly going to change his mind now? Like, the story's already written, and the prophecies have already been given. But still Zedekiah comes and asks, and Jeremiah says to him, you know this answer, surrender to the Babylonians, get out, destruction's coming, it's going to be bad. You need to surrender to them. You'll make it worse for yourself if you're not surrendering to them. And he adds another specific warning to them in verse 11, which kind of gives some insights into how the kingdom was running at the time, because he says, verse 11, Jeremiah 21. So execute judgment in the morning and deliver him that is spoiled out of the oppressor. Go forth like fire. That's not the verse I was looking for. But somewhere along the track in Jeremiah, I know it's the longest book, but somewhere you'll find in there that he's talking about to Zedekiah. He adds a specific warning to him about looking after the poor and the needy, those who were being despised by the princes. He says, go and release them, go and look after them. And so, this is what God's looking for. He's looking for a just king who looks after the poor and needy. He's not looking for a king who's setting up a throne and he's going to hold it at all costs. He's looking for a king who looks after his people and does what's best for his people, which is surrendering to Nebuchadnezzar. Needless to say, they don't really listen to this. Jeremiah 34, come across to there. Jeremiah 34, and we're at verse 11. Hopefully my notes are right about that one. This is actually the section I was talking about. Verse 8, the word of Jeremiah from God came after that Zedekiah made a covenant that they proclaim liberty to the manservant and the maidservant, and they let them go free. And it seems when you kind of line up the timelines, it seems like that this was happening during the first siege when the Babylonians were around the walls of Jerusalem. And it seems to be that, in desperation, that they actually listen to Jeremiah and do what Jeremiah says. But then what happens is that the Egyptians come up against Babylon, and Nebuchadnezzar leaves Jerusalem and goes down to deal with the Egyptians. And they obviously lift up the siege that's happening in Israel, and the people have kind of this intermission that's happening. And when the people see this, verse 11, but afterward, when this intermission happens, afterward they turned and caused the servants and the handmaids whom they let go free to return, and they brought them into subjection for servants and handmaids. So there's kind of like this good things that was happening in the time of Zedekiah and Jeremiah was doing, but then when the relief came for them, they're like, actually those servants were pretty good, weren't they? And I kind of need them. I need them now to heat up my bath and do all those things that servants presumably do. And we have some insights into this first siege in Lamentations, and that's kind of why we did Lamentations, while we read Lamentations, because it's like the Psalm. It's kind of giving Jeremiah's thoughts that are happening during the siege. And this first siege is really Lamentations 1 and 2 is really that kind of first siege that we see in Zedekiah. And I'll just pick up a few verses in there because it really gives us, we have kind of the Jeremiah story which tells us what actually happens, but Lamentation tells us what Jeremiah's thinking and how he's feeling as he sees his people being besieged. Verse 1, the city sits in solitary that was full of people, but now she's become a widow. She was great among the nations, but now she's become a tributary. And Jeremiah mourns this decline for his people, where once they were rulers and now they're the ruled. Once they were the people who gave tribute, who asked for tributary, and now they're the ones paying taxes. And verse 7, he mourns for their losses that he sees of the people. Verse 7, Jerusalem remembered the days of her affliction and her miseries, and all her pleasant things that she had in the days of old. And when her people fell into the hand of her enemy, none did help her, and they did mock her Sabbaths. And Jeremiah really mourns this time where they've lost all these things. Sieges are terrible. The idea of a siege, if you don't know, they camp around the walls and they starve you out. You can't get access to food and water. All the good things in life are gone. I think the rest of Australia almost thought WA was under siege through COVID, when they shut their borders. And it's kind of like, it's not quite like that, but, you were limited in where you could travel and how you could go. But this siege was so much worse because it's like food and water and all those things are gone. You're in a much smaller space. It's not about you can't go to the next suburb, it's you can't actually leave your house. And Jeremiah mourns this desecration that he's seen of the people and how their Sabbaths are being mocked. Verse 8, their religion is gone. And he mourns this because he sees the people decline into ways which they can't bear. Verse 9, her filthiness is in her skirts, and she remembered not her last end. Therefore she came down wonderfully, and she had no comforter. O God, behold my affliction, for the enemy magnifies herself. And Jeremiah has to live through this with the people. As God's word, as God's message to the end times, Jeremiah lives through this with the people. He's not spared this, and he goes through the hard times that the people have. And verse 19, the rulers have left the people. The priests and the elders have given up the spirit in the city. And while they sought meat to relieve their souls. There's no such thing as a priest or a prince anymore. Everyone's on the same level. Everyone's just looking for food. Everyone's just looking for water. They're searching the streets. All the rulers have gone, and the rule of law is now gone. Lawlessness, 2 verse 9. Lawlessness is breaking out in the city. Her gates are sunk in the ground, and he hath destroyed and broken her bars. Her king and her princes are among the Gentiles. The law is no more. Her prophets also find no vision from God. And Jeremiah, what's he doing? Verse 11, mine eyes do fail with tears. My bowels are troubled. My liver is poured upon the earth for the destruction of the daughter of my people. Because of the children, because of the sons and daughters and the sucklings that swoon in the streets of the city. And this pulled at Jeremiah's heartstrings when he sees the cries of the children and he sees what they have to go through because of the stubbornness of their rulers. Because the kings and their rulers were just looking out for themselves. They weren't doing what's good for the people and surrendering to Nebuchadnezzar like God told them to do. They had this grasp on the rule and they weren't letting go. And this is God's judgment on the people to try and get them to turn back to him, to know that he is God and he rules in the kingdom. And so we have this intermission where Babylon goes away from the walls the people have some relief from the siege. Jeremiah 37. We did a lot of this in our exhort, so I'm not going to cover that in great detail anymore. I'm really just going to skim over it. Jeremiah 37. Once again, Zedekiah comes and he's asking King Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, reigned instead of Coniah, the son of Jehoiakim, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, made king in the land. And he comes again, verse 3, to ask, sent this time Jehukal, the son of Shelemiah, and Zephaniah, he's the same guy, the son of Maaseiah, the priest, to the prophet, saying, pray unto God for us. Jeremiah's like, I think we've been through this before, haven't we? You know, the Babylonians are gone. Now's your time to repent. Now's your time to change. Now's your time to get out of the city. Verse 7, the Babylonians are coming back again. This isn't the end. There's more to come. Verse 38, chapter 38, we mentioned before that in this time that the son of when Shephatiah, the son of Matan, Gedaliah, the son of Pasha, Jukal, the son of Shemaliah, Pasha, heard the words of Jeremiah, that he's talking to the king, that he's saying the Babylonians are coming, they go and they put him in prison. You know, there's no good figs left anymore. There's no one fighting for Jeremiah. Jeremiah's on his own. The king isn't really there who's going to support him anymore. And we know that story where he's put into the cistern, into the long drop, and there's no and there's no relief for Jeremiah there. And we went through that story in the exhort, so we're not going to go through that again. But Ebed-Melech, the Ethiopian, comes and he pulls Jeremiah out with these rotten cords. And I think it's interesting that Ebed-Melech goes to the king and says, let me go and get Jeremiah out of this cistern that the princes have put him in. And Zedekiah says, yes, okay, do it. And Ebed-Melech still takes with him 30 men. You know, there's only one guy down there. We probably don't need 30 men to get him out. These are kind of like the bodyguards that Ebed-Melech needs to pull him out in case the princes find out what's happening. The king's not there. He's not going to be strong enough to support Jeremiah or stand up to the princes. Verse 14, then Zedekiah sent and took Jeremiah the prophet unto him again. And he's going to ask again, I'll ask thee, and hide nothing from me. And Jeremiah says, yes, of course, I won't hide God's words from you. This is literally my role. This is literally what I do. But I think we know that story, don't we? We know the message of God doesn't change just because you come and ask lots of times, ask in different ways, ask with different people, it's still the same message. When your kids ask dad or they ask mum, in an ideal world, it's the same answer they get, and that's what it is. That's what it is with God. It doesn't matter how many times you come; it's still going to be that same answer once He's made up His mind. Verse 17, Jeremiah tells Zedekiah, "Go out to Babylon. Go and be with them again." But verse 19, Zedekiah is actually. What does he say? Oh, I can't go out to Babylon. I can't go out to Nebuchadnezzar because I'm afraid of the Jews. You're the king, mate. You're meant to rule them. You're meant to control them. This is literally your only job is to control them. Don't be scared of them. Do what's right. Do what's good for the people. Be that Yahweh our righteousness, that king that looks after the people. But Zedekiah is holding on to that power. And I guess the princes at the time, these are the, the cast-off princes, aren't they? These aren't the royal blood necessarily. These are the last and the last of the royal blood. All the good royal blood has been taken to Babylon. And these are the princes who never thought they would be prince ever in their life. And suddenly they're given this power and they don't want to let go of it. And so they hold on to it. And they're kind of that strength behind Zedekiah. And Zedekiah is afraid of them, but he's also afraid of the Jews who are in Babylon that he's going to have to share the prison cell with. And so we know the story, don't we? Nebuchadnezzar deals with the Egyptians and he comes back. He comes back to Jerusalem and Zedekiah has lost his chance to go out to him and surrender to him. Jeremiah 32, we start the besieging of Jerusalem, the second and final time. Jeremiah 32. So Jeremiah's in prison, the siege is happening. And what do you need right now? What assets going up exponentially? Well, food and water. And what assets going down exponentially in value? Well, it's property, isn't it? It's land. Land's worthless now. People are selling their land to get food and water. But then this guy comes to Jeremiah. He comes to him in prison. He's coming to a guy in prison and he's trying to sell him something absolutely worthless, doesn't he? He's trying to sell him a plot of land. Verse 7, Jeremiah 32, verse 7. Behold, Hananiah, the son of Shallum, thine uncle, shall come unto thee, saying, Buy thee my field that is in Anathoth, for the right of redemption is thine to buy it. Just goes to show how desperate they were for kind of any sort of money, any sort of relief, aren't they? And it's clearly, this is kind of like the emails we get where, my Nigerian my Nigerian prince has left me some money. I just need to transfer it to you. Will you give me some cash to do that? You know, this is to all intents and purposes, to a rational man, this looks like a scam, doesn't it? He's selling him this plot of land which is worthless to a guy in prison who presumably doesn't really have much money either. But he comes and he appeals to him. But what's the response? The response is, God says to him, verse 8, verse 8, he says, buy my field that's in Anathoth, which is in the country of Benjamin, so from your homeland. And verse 9, I brought the field of Hanamel, my uncle's son, that was in Anathoth, and weighed him the money, even 17 shekels of silver. And this is what God tells Jeremiah to do. And I think it's a great little encouragement, I think, for Jeremiah in prison at the time. He's clearly going to be down in the dumps because he's in prison and his people are under siege again. But he has this piece of land that he's brought. And what's the point of that? You know, presumably everyone's going to die in the siege and no one's going to get out. So this piece of land is, not only is it worthless, but Jeremiah's probably not going to get it while he's alive. And even if you know, and even if he's immortal, when he's immortal, like, what does an immortal want to do with a plot of land in Anathoth? You know, it's kind of, wouldn't you prefer to be up in Neptune, you know, scouring the solar system, checking out God's creation out there? What do you need it? Why would you lock yourself down in a piece of land when you're immortal? But Jeremiah does this, and I've had some great discussions with people around here why it's the case. But it seems to be that this is Jeremiah's signal that this message of hope that I gave you in Jeremiah 30 and 31 is going to happen. It doesn't look like it now. With the army surrounding us, I'm in prison, I'm stuck on bread and water, but I'm buying this land because it's going to happen. It's going to be good soon. It's going to change. This isn't the end. I'm going to live to see this. And this is the message that he's really giving to, Ebed-Melech and those around who are seeing if Jeremiah is still living the message that God has given him. It's a demonstration by God of his promise and the future that he has in store for us all. And so Jeremiah can lift his eyes above the siege and say, yes, there's value in that land, if nothing else, as a signal to the people around us that I believe the message that God has given us, and that I believe in the hope and the promises that God has in store for us. And so verse 14, he takes this and he does it with Baruch, his friend, doesn't he? The son of Neriah, the son of Maasai, in the sight of Hanamel, my uncle's son, in the presence of witnesses. So, he makes this whole song and dance about, this is what I'm doing, everyone. Look at this. I'm doing it in front of my, Baruch, my good friend. I'm doing it in front of all the people. Everyone know this is what I'm doing. I'm buying this plot of land because I believe God's words. And this would have been, encouraging to the people around them, but I think it would have been encouraging for Jeremiah when God told him to do this as well. And I think that's what Lamentations 3, he's sitting in prison during the time of Zechariah, and he kind of has these moments where the cloud is pulled back and the sun shines. And verse 20, Lamentations 3, verse 20, my soul still in remembrance and is humbled, and this I recall to mind, and therefore I have hope. He's sitting in prison, remembering his affliction and his misery, the wormwood and the gall that he's going through, but then he remembers and he has hope. And what is it? That God's mercies, it's of God's mercies that we're not consumed. And it's because his compassions fail not. And they're new every morning, and great is thy faithfulness. God is my portion. He's my portion. He's the thing that I buy and I invest my money in. He's my portion, saith my soul. Therefore I hope in him. Yahweh is good. You may not see it now, but Yahweh is good to those that both hope and quietly wait for the salvation of God. And this kind of this uplifting message that Jeremiah has in the completely most depressing times that you could ever live through. He says, no, this is my plot of land and this is my portion. And God is good to those that quietly wait for his redemption. Jeremiah 39, where this is kind of the end of the siege that we come to, and we read about that. It's the final destruction of Jerusalem, and it's kind of, Ezekiel talks about it in Ezekiel 32 and 33. But Jeremiah 39, in the 11th year, verse 2, in the 11th year of Zedekiah, in the 4th month, in the 9th day of the month, the city was broken up. And all the princes of Babylon came in, and they sat in the middle gate, all those names, with the residue of the princes and the king of Babylon. And Nebuchadnezzar, has kind of worked with Daniel to kind of set up a king or potentially work with Daniel to set up a king who might be that hope of Yahweh our righteousness, but that hasn't worked, has it? And so Nebuchadnezzar says, right, this is the end. This is the end of the city. I'm putting an end to it. But what does he do to, so we know about the destruction of Zedekiah, verse 6. He slays the sons of Zedekiah in Riblah and puts out his eyes. And he slays all the princes and the nobles who didn't listen to him. And he puts them in chains and carries them off to Babylon. But verse 11, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, gave charge concerning Jeremiah to Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, saying, take him, look after him, do him no harm, and do unto him even as he shall say unto thee. Yeah, so Nebuchadnezzar knew about Jeremiah, he knew about his prophecies, he knew his ways, and that was clearly Daniel working with Nebuchadnezzar there. Like there's no way a foreign king would know anything about the prophets that were happening at Jerusalem. And Nebuchadnezzar says, do whatever he wants to do, wherever he wants to go, whatever he wants to do. And we have this, so that's the story, and we have this second siege through Lamentations, and the second part of Lamentations really deals with this. I'm just going to pull out a few emotions that Jeremiah talks about as he's living through this siege. We looked at when he's in the pit in the latter parts of Lamentations 3, but Lamentations 4 verse 3, Jeremiah's mourning the change that's happened to his people. My people, the daughter of my people, has become cruel. They're like ostriches in the wilderness. The tongue of the suckling child cleaveth to the roof of the mouth for thirst. The children ask for bread, and no man breaketh it for them. The last kind of vestiges of normal behaviour is swept away, and parents are no longer looking after their children, and the children are weeping for the bread and water, and none feeds them. Lamentations 4 verse 19 and 20. Our persecutors are swifter than eagles. They pursue us on the mountains. They laid wait for us in the wilderness. And I kind of like that. Well, not like is kind of a strong word, but notice how in that verse Jeremiah says, our persecutors are swifter than eagles. They pursued us. They laid wait for us. Like Jeremiah hasn't disassociated himself from the people here. I'm still with them. It's us. And the people are doing it to us. And we read that verse 20, that the breath of their nostrils, the anointed of Yahweh is taken in their pits. So Zedekiah is taken. This is the king of whom we were meant to say, under his shadow we'll live among the heathen, and how they've been brought low because they didn't listen to God and didn't want to do what he says. 5 verse 8, the servants, they've ruled over us. All the good figs are gone, all the princes are gone, and now it's like servants are ruling over us. The lowest of the people are ruling over us, and there's none that delivers us or looks after us. They're just interested in rule. They're not interested in doing God's justice or looking after the people. And Jeremiah's final climax of this book that God's given him, God said to Jeremiah, write down your weeping, get it off your chest, put it down, and his great climax that we come to is in verse 19 to 20. You, O God, remainest forever, thy throne from generation to generation. You, God, you last forever, and you're there forever. But what about us? Have you forgotten us? Have you forsaken us, God? Turn back to us, God, and we will be turned. Renew our days of as old. But thou hast utterly rejected us. Thou art very wroth with us. And this is the conclusion of Jeremiah's lamentation that he has with the people. And he looks at the destruction of his people, the destruction of David's line, and he says, you've rejected us. You're very wroth with us. And you think that's the end? And you think Jeremiah's given up on them? You know, Nebuchadnezzar says you can go anywhere. Go up to, the lovely rivers of Kedar, and you can sit on there and have a riverside mansion there. Or you could go to Joppa and, do a little bit of fishing over there. And what does Jeremiah say? No, my place is still with my people. I'm still with them. And we Jeremiah 39, we read that, I think it's in verse 11, where he says, no, I stay here with my people. He hasn't given up on them. He doesn't leave them. He says, my role is to be God's word to them in the last days. And that's what I'm going to be to the bitter end. The self-sacrifice that Jeremiah has for his people goes well beyond what we would ever imagine or what we could ever do. I feel, for myself anyway. He even thinks God has given up on them, but he's like, but I'm still going to be here with you, and I'm going to give of myself for you. So what can we learn? What can we learn from that story? I would feel uncomfortable giving this last section to my home ecclesia, because they know me and they'll be like, yeah, you're just talking about me. But I actually don't. I don't know many of you here, so I'm not talking to anyone specifically. This is broad, generic learnings that I found from Jeremiah. This is not a rule. There's always variations to the rule. There's changes to the rule. But I think as a way of exhortation and as a way of kind of helping us reflect, I think it's a good thing. But by no means, if this isn't a rule. I'm not talking to you specifically. This is just the lesson. One of the more important lessons I feel come from Jeremiah in my studies and really impacted me. One of the things we notice every time when we hear about good people in Jeremiah's time is who's their granddad and who's their dad. You always hear about Gedaliah, and he's the grandson of Shaphan. And it's always the grandson or the son of Shaphan, isn't it? Or it's always the grandson and the son of Hilkiah. And who's the people who kind of lock up Jeremiah? Well, we know about Irijah, who kind of was the grandson of Hananiah, wasn't he? And he's the one who reported Jeremiah to the princes, and they lock him up. I think a really powerful lesson that comes for me is that strong families and strong family environments are what create good, strong ecclesias. There's variations to that rule, there's differences to that rule, but I think as a general lesson that we can pull out from Jeremiah is the people who were Jeremiah's friends were the sons of Hilkiah, the grandsons of Hilkiah, the sons of Shaphan, the grandsons of Shaphan. Obviously, Josiah, there's exceptions to the rule, How many of the sons of Josiah were good? None, there's exceptions to the rule. But I think, and I've seen this carried out in my life. This is our Year 12 class. Some of you know the people here, and that's well and good. And I feel like this class is a really special. Well, it's special because I was in it, but and not special for other reasons. But I think this is kind of a good experiment class because when I started Heritage, it was the first year Heritage started, and I was in reception. So I can't remember when we opened, but when we opened, I started in reception, and that was the first year I went to school. So this class, they come and went, they weren't all there, but this class was the class where we did, as a community, everything we could for them. Like, we went to school, they had the opportunity to go to Sunday school, and we did everything we could and this was kind of our guinea pig. Okay, is it worth setting up a heritage college? Is it going to have any real impact on them? Of this class, I think there's 18 or 19 in there. We have, I don't know where their faith's at or anything like that. I'm just looking at, are they kind of active members in our ecclesial environment anymore? And there's about 5 that 5 or 6 that kind of aren't really active members anymore, which is actually, I was surprised at how I thought a lot more, what's that, out of 18, 19, 5, it's roughly 20% don't come along anymore. I think that's actually, so I think that's testament to Heritage, if you like. If you want to promo for Heritage, use this class. Other classes below are different, and other classes above are different. But this is my class. But I think of that 5 or 6, one thing that I have found common amongst them is that one or more of their parents also don't come along anymore. And of the 13, 14, 15 roughly that still do come along, that's a much lower percentage of maybe 3 or 4 of one or more of their parents don't come along anymore. Obviously, this isn't a rule. There's exceptions to this rule, but I think as an exhortational idea, I think it backs up with what Jeremiah is saying, that really strong families and good families are what grow good ecclesias. Parents and those older than 25, you can draw your own lessons from that. It's primarily a youth group or end of years, so I'm going to address most of the lessons to that. So kids at the front here, I'm looking at you. Although you're probably not kids, most of you, almost my age, but yeah, anyway. One of the really strong lessons that I feel comes from this is that, okay, if families are what hold ecclesias together, it's really important to choose your partner carefully. Kind of obvious, but it's a lesson that I think we can all think about. Don't rush this decision. It's a lifelong decision that will affect your spiritual life, their spiritual life, and if you're blessed, your kids' spiritual life as well. Make sure you know what they're like truly before you become married and you settle down with them. God says, to help with that decision, try and remove any distractions, any, premarital sex or something like that that might cloud your vision of what they really like. This isn't a kind of an archaic Anglo-Saxon hand-me-down that your parents are insisting on. It's actually a God-given wisdom which helps you, with a clear mind, make a decision about the partner that you have. You know, like that you know, sex or intimacy is not the basis for a relationship. It's kind of like the, how would you put it? It's like the touch-up paint, if you like. It's not, you can't build a home with it, but it does make a home fresh and nice and enjoyable to live in. Like, it's a blessing by God. But the reason for that is to keep your relationship strong and lasting, you know, because as you grow and as you develop, you know, marriage isn't always the Disney where we all go and everyone lives happily ever after. There's those things that you thought were nice and cute at the start suddenly become annoying, you know, years down the track. And God gives us ways to grow that bond stronger and make that bond stronger. So choosing your partner isn't something to be rushed into. It's something that your spiritual life depends on, your partner's spiritual life depends on, and if you're blessed with kids, potentially their life depends on it as well. The other lesson I think that I pull from this, or I pull for you from this, I pull from my own experiences as well from this, is that if you're still living, or not if, even if you're not still living with your parents, but if you are still living with your parents, and also if you're not living with your parents now, you're part of a family, and if you're listening to this talk, you're probably old enough to contribute back to your family now. In the early years, you know, my kids, I wish they were here and they would hear these lessons, but maybe I'll get them up once I get home. You know, like they're not old enough to kind of give back to, you know, to the family too much. You know, they can set the table, but, you know, like it's actually, honestly, it's probably easier and quicker if I just set the table. But, you know, like that's their kind of way, how we teach them to give back. But God, young people, has put you in a family with your parents. The potter has chosen to place you in this environment to grow. And, you know, I see strong, independent women and, you know, young bulls out there, and the urge is to push against your parents and kind of, you know, rebel against what they say. And that's, you know, very natural. And, you know, yes, that I did that as well. But God has placed you in this family with those parents to help you grow and to help you learn. And now's kind of your time to help with that as well, and also help your parents to grow as well. Believe it or not, you know, this is probably, if you're the oldest, definitely the first time your parents have been going through this experience of having a teenager who suddenly wants independence and drive and stuff like that. So they're still learning as well. So bear with them. Try your hardest to you know, harness that energy into helping them and working with them. You know, as hard as it is to believe sometimes, they actually do love you most of the time. And they're trying to do, you know, what's best for you and what they believe is best for you. And this is kind of, you know, a very natural thing that, you know, that even the animals see, where their parents teach the younger to hunt and that type of thing. And so, you know, if you're a young person and maybe the household is, you know, prickly sometimes, just remember to try to give back in that relationship as well. It's not always about taking. It's not always about trying to push your way and do your way. It's about trying to, I guess, work with your parents and help them to grow, just like you are helping to grow as well. Try and cultivate those relationships, because they're the people who really do love you. And they're the people who are going to be with you when times are tough, and they're the people who have got your back. So as much as you can, try and remember to give back. You're not children anymore. And God has put you in this position to help you learn what it's like to respect and listen to someone. This is probably what needed to happen to Zedekiah. He needed to learn and to respect and listen. And it's much easier to learn to respect and listen to your parents, that you can see that they show how much they love you, than it is to learn to respect and listen to your God, potentially, who definitely is unseen, and much harder to see what he's trying to do in your life. Just as a general statement as well, I think we're really good in an ecclesia at supporting strong families. And I think this is coming from my experience that I find in my hometown in Cumberland. Maybe you can probably report this back to the AB, but they probably already know this. I think we're really good at supporting the strong families in Christadelphia. But I think we do, in my home ecclesia at least, I think we need to be a little bit better at supporting those who do come from different family structures and different environments. I think when you look historically over ecclesias and how they've run, I don't think necessarily we have put enough emphasis and created enough support around people who are struggling and are in different family positions than what strong families are necessarily in. And God's measure of how the nation of Israel was going is, he said, my measure of you is when you're looking after the fatherless, when you're looking after the widows, and when you're looking after the strangers. And I think that's a good lesson that we can kind of all reflect on, and talk about later on how we can do this. But just wrapping up, I know that we've gone through a lot tonight, but that lesson of God has put you in a family. If you don't have a family, you have an ecclesial family. Work together, keep strong, because when you work together and keep strong, that's the most likely chance that you'll be there at the end when God comes for his children.
Thanks so much for your words tonight, Brother Shem. We appreciate the detail and the depth that you've gone into to look into these things, to expound to us and to help us understand these things of Jeremiah and find some practical ways that we can put them into our lives as well. We're going to finish our night with a hymn and then a prayer, and following our prayer we'll have some thoughts of a meditation song which will follow on straight after our prayer. So let's close our night with the words of hymn 357, which gives us those 4 key takeaways, which are: take courage, be thankful, be prayerful, and be joyful. Our final meditation song after our prayer tonight will be based on the theme indescribable. So some key words for us to consider as we wrap our night up tonight. So let's finish now with hymn and then prayer, our final hymn, 357. Yahweh, our great God, we finish our night now with our prayer as we come to you. We thank you for our time together tonight. We're grateful that we can be here, we can be encouraged, we can learn, we can grow, we can develop our conscience before you. We've seen all the things that have been going on through the life of Jeremiah, the challenges he's endured, the things your people have had to endure and go through ultimately because of the result of their disobedience, their lack of consideration for your laws. But we're grateful that we can read these things and we can be encouraged. We can take stock of our lives. We can look inward. There's so many things that can pull us away from our lives and our walk before you. We get distracted with all the affluence and the wealth and the prosperity and the peace, the health that we have here in this country. And this is ultimately our test and something for us to continually work through. But we pray that you would help us to take courage, to be thankful for all the things that we have, to be prayerful, to help us with our brethren and sisters, our families, to work through these things, to stay focused until your Son returns, to be joyful. We have so many great things that we have here in this city with all the people around us, so many things to be grateful and thankful for. So please help us to stay encouraged, to stay focused until your Son returns. So we pray to you now as we give you our thanks for all the good gifts, our food tonight, so many things that we have each and every day. We are grateful for this. We say our prayer to you as we close our night now. We do this in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
to our knees as we humbly proclaim, you are amazing, God. Indescribable, uncontainable, you place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. Incomparable, unchangeable, you see the depths of my heart and you love me the same. You are amazing, God. You are amazing, God.
Thank you to our choir group for that meditation. Thank you, Brother Jace, Brother Shem, and good evening, brothers and sisters and friends. It's fantastic again to see you here, and the hall have been so full throughout this week of end-of-year studies. Whip through the announcements for tonight. So after we conclude here, we will have our third youth supper, which will be held at Brother Jared and Sister Mel Skipper's. We will place their address on the WhatsApp group. If you're not in the group and you need the address, please come and see myself or another member of the committee and we can pass that on to you. Our final study in the series will be the exhortation on Sunday morning. That'll be held 10 a.m. at Eastern Suburbs Hall to the theme, The Goodness of God. Then Sunday evening, 6 p.m, back here at Gosnells Hall, we're going to have our Song and Praise evening. So please join us for that as well as we summarise the themes that we've been thinking about throughout this last week through songs and hymns of praise and other meditation items as well. A huge thank you to those who have helped us to maintain order and cleanliness here at Gosnells Hall, including fishing lolly wrappers out of the urinal. That goes above and beyond. But thank you so very much for your service and your help throughout this week. Camp fees, you know what to do. If you need assistance, please see Asher or Lynx or another member of the camp committee. And a final reminder for our night markets event, which will be held tomorrow evening, 5 to 8 p.m. at the Yorks Orchard, 731 Canning Road in Carmel. And that's going to include something for everyone. There's going to be a wide variety of delicious drinks, treats, snacks, dinner, show bags, face painting, kids paddle pool, bouncy castle, inflatable surfboard, country style fair games, apple bobbing, pie and eating donut competitions, and so much more. So hope to see you there for a evening of fun and maybe some chaos as well. Entry $5 per person. Bring a little extra if you'd like to purchase dinner. Looking at the crystal ball, it's going to be about 31 degrees at the start, about 23 degrees at the end. So make sure you bring a jumper as well if you're planning on staying right through to the end because it might get a bit chilly. That's your weather forecast. We will see you tomorrow, God willing. God bless and enjoy the fellowship together.